They called them primitives once. Soft-skinned, short-lived, born from mud and oxygen. The galaxy's empires, proud, ancient, glittering across the endless dark, looked down upon humanity as a curiosity, not a power. A young, impulsive race, destined to burn brightly and fade quickly. To the Vernari ascendancy, humanity was a lesson in hubris. To the Druid Confederacy, they were an economic nuisance. To the Kellner theocracy, they were a sin of creation, proof that the cosmos sometimes made mistakes. No one feared Earth, not anymore, after all. It had been nearly 600 years since the human expansion collapsed, since their colonies went silent. Their great fleets vanished beyond the Orion Gate, and their signals faded into static. The archives of the Galactic Council called it a self-inflicted extinction, a tragedy of their own making, a species that rose too fast, too hungry, and ultimately devoured itself. A lesson to all, a myth to most. And so, the galaxy moved on. The Vernari ascendancy ruled the core worlds with fleets of polished silver, their ships shaped like blades, their banners reflecting the light of dying stars. The Druid Confederacy, ever hungry for profit, stretched their trade routes across half the known void. The Kellner theocracy whispered sermons into the combs of distant worlds, spreading faith through fear and flame. Between them sat thousands of smaller powers, nomadic species, merchant guilds, and scavenger swarms that feasted on the remnants of fallen empires. The galaxy was old, layered in history, its peace maintained, not by trust, but by exhaustion. Humanity. They were nothing more than a cautionary tale told to ambitious young admirals and reckless explorers. Do not rise too quickly, lest you burn like the humans did. That was the saying. That was the arrogance. The dimmed stars. The first sign came from the outer sectors, a small outpost in the Lyra belt, gone. No distress call, no explosion, no debris, just gone. At first, the Vernari dismissed it as a malfunction. Then it happened again, a mining station, then a relay beacon, then 3 entire trade routes. Systems that had pulsed with light for centuries went silent, their suns flickering as though something vast and unseen had passed before them. The reports multiplied. From the Druid border, from Kellner's outer colonies, from uncharted regions where no sane explorer ventured. Black hole migration, the scientists claimed. Spatial storms, argued the engineers. Piracy, muttered the admirals. But the truth was worse. Far worse. The Vernari High Council convened an emergency session. The galaxy's most powerful species gathered in shimmering halls of crystal and plasma, their voices layered in pride and fear. It's spreading, said one counselor. The void is growing. Impossible, replied another. Space does not grow, but the records were clear. Stars were dimming in a pattern, a slow, deliberate spiral, all tracing toward a single forgotten region of the galaxy. A region marked in ancient maps as Solii, the Admiral's mission. Admiral Zorath, of the Vernari Imperial Navy, was no stranger to mystery. He had fought pirates in the void corridors, shattered insurgents in the luminous war, and seen suns die in nuclear storms. But this was different. When the Council ordered him to investigate the Sigma-13 system, one of the last to go dark, he expected an answer rooted in science. A collapsed star, perhaps, a rogue anomaly. He brought with him a fleet of 200 ships, cruisers, frigates, research vessels, and the dreadnought Vengeance of Light. His flagship. They jumped through the void in perfect formation, hulls gleaming like rivers of steel. The journey took 7 cycles. And when they emerged, they found nothing. No transmissions, no heat signatures, no movement, just silence. Sigma-13 had been stripped clean. Planets reduced to drifting fragments. Moons shattered. The system's sun dimmer than before, as if its energy had been drained. The bridge was quiet. Every officer stared at their displays, waiting for an explanation. Scans, Zorath asked, voice steady. Negative, Admiral, said the sensor officer. No debris fields, no radiation trails, no trace of weapon fire. Then what happened here? No one could answer, until the helmsman whispered, Admiral, you should see this. 3. The shadow. At first, it appeared as a faint echo on the scanners, a distortion at the system's edge. Zorath leaned forward. Magnify. The view zoomed. Stars bent around something vast, something dark, featureless, and impossibly massive. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't an asteroid. It was a shadow, a silhouette that swallowed light itself. They watched as it drifted slowly through the debris field, silent and deliberate. Its outline was smooth, angular, and disturbingly geometric. A machine's precision, not nature's chaos. Planetary debris, one officer asked. Negative, Zorath replied. His eyes narrowed. That's no moon. The ship loomed larger as they approached. It stretched across their entire viewport, dwarfing even the largest dreadnoughts in the fleet. Its surface reflected almost nothing, a matte black that seemed to drink in starlight. And then they saw it, markings, etched deep into the armor. Ancient letters, half effaced by time, written in a language long extinct. Zorath frowned. Translate. The AI struggled, cycling through thousands of dialects. Before finally producing a single word. It flickered across the console. Terra, top for the first time in decades. Admiral Zoroth felt fear. 4. The debate back aboard the flagship, the command staff gathered in the war room, a holographic sphere where data shimmered like mist. This could be human, said Lieutenant Krell, the science officer. But it's impossible. The last human transmission was over 500 years ago. Automated, then, asked another. Perhaps, said Krell, hesitating, but no construct could remain active this long without maintenance. And whatever this is, it's alive. Alive. Energy readings suggest constant modulation, controlled power output. There's something inside it, a fusion of organic and synthetic mass. Zoroth folded his arms. You're saying this thing is functioning? Yes, sir. Actively. The Admiral turned toward the hologram of the structure, his reflection cold and sharp. Send a probe. The probe launched a tiny silver dart against a planet-sized shadow. It transmitted for 6 seconds before its signal died. 6 seconds then. The structure moved. Slowly, deliberately, its orientation shifted, aligning perfectly with the Vernari fleet. Admiral Krell said quietly, "It's tracking us." First transmission came seconds later, static at first, then a voice. "Com. Low human, you are trespassing in human space." The bridge went silent. No one spoke. No one breathed. The translator confirmed the impossible. Origin language, Terran standard. Zoroth felt his heart freeze. "Open a channel," he said. "Identify yourself." The voice continued, as though it hadn't heard. "Reverse course immediately. Failure to comply will result in neutralization." Neutralization, Zoroth muttered. "Who dares?" "Admiral," the helmsman interrupted. "Should we respond?" Zoroth's pride overruled his caution. "Of course. I am Admiral Zoroth of the Vernari Empire. We come in peace to investigate a disturbance in this sector." Silence. Then. The voice again, softer this time, colder. "You have been warned." The signal cut out. Every officer stared at the Admiral, waiting for orders. Zoroth clenched his fists. "A bluff," he said. "An automated defense system. Prepare firing sequence." The command crew hesitated. "Do it." Zoroth snapped. Hundreds of ships powered up their weapons, energy coursing through the void. Targeting sensors locked onto the massive construct. Fire. The void lit up like 1,000 suns. Plasma lances, rail slugs, fusion torpedoes, every weapon in the fleet struck the structure's hull. The impacts rippled like fireworks across its surface, and vanished. Not a dent, not a scratch. Then came the hum, a vibration so deep it rattled their bones. Space itself seemed to thrum. The construct turned. Panels unfolded along its length, revealing vast openings like the eyes of a sleeping god awakening. "Energy surge," shouted the sensor officer. "It's charging something." Gravitational distortion rising. Shields. Too late. A single pulse of white light erupted from the structure's core. Silent, pure, absolute. It struck one of the Vernari cruisers. The ship did not explode. It did not break apart. It simply ceased to exist. Atomized in an instant. The fleet erupted into chaos. Evasive maneuvers. Jump engines offline. "It's collapsing our FTL field." Zoroth watched in horror as, one by one, his ships vanished into nothing. Each flash of light erased another captain, another crew, another dream, and through it all, the human voice spoke once more. "You were warned." Then silence. When the survivors finally limped back to the core worlds, their sensors fried and their minds shaken, the report spread like wildfire. A human construct, active, awake, planet-sized, unstoppable, and across its surface, carved into alloy older than the stars themselves, a single name, Terra.va. The aftermath of Vernari, High Council tried to suppress the news. They called it propaganda, a glitch, an illusion born of deep space, radiation. But word traveled faster than truth. The Druin traders whispered of shadows swallowing light. The Kellner priests spoke of Judgment Day, of the return of the children of the void, and somewhere, beyond the edge of the known stars, sensors picked up a signal, faint, rhythmic, familiar, a human heartbeat, repeating, growing stronger. Epilogue. The arrogance of the stars. The galaxy had forgotten them. The galaxy had mocked them, but humanity never died. They simply slept. And now, they were waking. The stars themselves dimmed in reverence, or in fear, as the ancient machines. The first transmission arrived, not as a signal, but as a whisper, a soft, steady voice that cut through the static of deep space, like the breath of a ghost. "You are trespassing in human space." The words drifted through the comms deck of the Vernari flagship, VSS Radiant Dominion, with a quiet finality that froze every movement in the room. The comms officer, a young lieutenant with bioluminescent scales flickering along his jawline, turned slowly toward Admiral Zoroth. "Sir." His voice trembled. That voice, it's human. Zoroth, hardened by 40 years of military service, felt the faintest tremor run through his mandibles. "Impossible," he said. "The humans are gone. Wiped out. History confirms it." The voice repeated, calm and patient this time. "You will reverse course immediately. Failure to comply will result in neutralization." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, laughter uneasy, nervous, hollow filled the command bridge. "It's an old recording," one of the science officers said, trying to sound confident. "An automated system, centuries old, a relic of whatever ruins are down there." Zorath nodded slowly, though his eyes remained on the central view screen. Out there, floating before them, was the impossible, a planet-sized construct. It hung in the void like a shadow carved from night itself. No light, no reflection, no movement. Yet beneath its obsidian surface, faint geometric lines pulsed in slow rhythm, like the heartbeat of a sleeping Titan. The Sigma-13 system had gone dark weeks ago. Every relay station, every colony, every mining facility gone without a trace. When the Vernari High Council sent him, Zorath had expected pirates, rebellion, perhaps a rogue AI, not this. He leaned forward, magnified, full resolution, the display sharpened, the construct filled the view, and now, faintly, letters could be seen etched into its surface. The translation AI flickered for a moment, parsing through ancient archives, then rendered the word into Galactic Common. Terra whisper spread through the bridge. Terra, as in yes, Zorath muttered. Earth, he straightened, his pride warring with unease. Lock coordinates. Prepare a tactical scan. The ship's AI protested. Warning, active energy field detected. Scanning may be interpreted as aggression. Zorath's mandibles clicked. I didn't ask for an opinion. The scan initiated, and immediately, alarms screamed across the bridge. Sir, massive M feedback. It's scanning us. Impossible. Counterscan now. But before they could react, the voice returned, not a broadcast this time, but a direct neural transmission. Every being aboard the Vernari fleet felt it echo inside their minds. We gave warning once. We will not give it again. And then the construct began to move. It rotated slowly, deliberately, revealing vast rows of symmetrical indentations, not scars, not damage, but doors, thousands of them. And deep within, light began to bloom. The fleet's sensors overloaded in seconds. Energy surge detected. The technician shouted, magnitude impossible. It's spiking beyond our entire reactor output. On the view screen, one of the hangar doors yawned open, a blinding radiance spilling from within. From that abyss, something emerged. A ship, though calling it that, felt wrong. It was colossal, the length of a continent, armored in obsidian alloy that shimmered with faint blue veins of plasma. Its form was sleek, angular, designed not for beauty but for supremacy. And on its hull, one symbol glowed, a blue sphere encircled by orbiting rings, the emblem of Earth, the emblem of humanity. The bridge fell silent again. No one dared to breathe. Then the coms flared to life. Final warning, the voice said, leave now. Zorath's hands tightened on the console. Every instinct screamed to retreat, but pride was louder. The Vernari Empire had ruled the galaxy's core for nearly 1,000 years. They had crushed rebellions, extinguished empires, rewritten borders. No myth, no ghost would threaten them. Arm all plasma batteries, he ordered. Target that ship. Sir, it hasn't, I said. Fire. Thousands of energy lances erupted from the Vernari fleet, streaking across the void in brilliant arcs of blue and white. They struck the human ship's hull in a storm of fury and vanished without effect. Not a scratch, not a flicker, nothing. The bridge filled with stunned silence. Zorath's throat went dry. Report, direct hits across all decks. The weapons officer said, voice trembling. No measurable impact. Shields, if they even have shields, we can't detect them. It's like the energy just disappears. And then the human ship moved. It didn't accelerate, it shifted. One instant it was there, and the next it was closer, as though reality itself bent to its will. The Vernari fleet scrambled to adjust formation, alarms blaring, evasive maneuvers. Zorath shouted, all ships too late. A beam of pure white light erupted from the human ship's prow, silent, seamless, perfect. It lanced through the lead dreadnought, VSS Valiant, without resistance. The massive warship didn't explode. It didn't break apart. It simply ceased to exist. One moment there was a ship. The next there was only empty space. As if it had never been there at all. Every voice on the bridge fell silent. Then panic. Multiple vessels lost contact. They're being erased. Shields useless. Weapons offline. Zorath stared at the tactical display as blip after blip vanished. The largest fleet in Vernari history being wiped from existence one ship at a time. He opened a channel, shouting over the chaos. All ships, retreat. Fall back to subspace corridor now. But the human ship didn't let them. It moved again, faster than light, faster than thought, appearing directly in their escape vector. Another beam, another erasure, half the fleet gone. Then nearly all. The radiant dominion trembled as shockwaves rippled through space. Zorath's vision blurred, his chest pounding with a mixture of terror and disbelief. This isn't war, he whispered. This is extermination. The human voice returned one final time, echoing through the wreckage-strewn void. You were warned. Then the transmission cut. What remained of the Vernari fleet, a handful of crippled cruisers, engine sputtering, limped back toward the nearest relay beacon. Behind them, the colossal construct rotated once more. aligning itself with the system's dying sun. And for the first time in recorded history, the Vernari Empire retreated without victory. Days later, in the High Council chambers, the survivors were questioned. Few could speak without shaking. Admiral Zoroth sat in silence, eyes hollow. The reflection of that white beam still burned into his mind. "Explain what you saw," demanded one counselor. Zoroth lifted his gaze. "You will not understand. Try us," he exhaled slowly. "They're not extinct. The humans never died. They went dark. They hid, and they built." The chamber filled with murmurs, disbelief rippling through the room. Zoroth stood, his voice growing steadier with every word. "We thought them primitive. We thought them reckless. But what I saw out there," he hesitated. "No empire could make that. Not the Druin, not the Ascendancy, not even us. That wasn't a ship. It was a god made of metal." He turned to the galactic map projected behind him. "They've been watching us for centuries, waiting, and when they woke, they remembered." A hush fell over the room. "What do you propose?" One of the counselors whispered. Zoroth looked them all in the eye. "The same thing every survivor from Sigma 13 has already done, which is," he swallowed hard, "pray they go back to sleep." But the humans didn't sleep. Across the void, the construct, now confirmed to be the first of many, continued its slow awakening. Deep within its titanic core, massive engines hummed to life, their frequency echoing through subspace like the heartbeat of an ancient predator. And as its systems came online, hundreds of similar signals began to awaken across the galaxy, dormant human facilities, long buried beneath forgotten worlds and dead stars, each one broadcasting the same message: humanity awakens. Protocol, sovereign, initiated. Stars flickered. Systems went silent. The galaxy began to tremble, and in the deepest reaches of the void, as the great empires of the cosmos scrambled to prepare, one thing became certain: the age of arrogance was over. Humanity was gone. The age of humanity extinct, had returned. Forgotten. But now, their shadow stretched once again across the stars, vast, cold, and unstoppable. News of the Vernari fleet's destruction spread faster than light itself, transmitted across every communication array, whispered in the hidden channels of smugglers, and screamed in the panicked briefings of empires. Humanity had returned. No one wanted to believe it. No one could believe it. But denial died the moment the first recordings surfaced. Sensor footage from a single surviving cruiser, its data core barely intact. The footage played across the councils. Chamber of stars, the vast silhouette of a planetary machine, its surface pulsing like a heartbeat. A single word burned into its hull: Terra. And then the beam. That perfect, silent beam that erased an entire dreadnought from existence, as if it had been plucked out of reality. The chamber was silent when the recording ended. Not even the air vents dared to whisper. Then, chaos. Voices erupted. Dozens of species speaking at once, their translators struggling to keep up. Fear, disbelief, and pride tangled into one furious storm. They built worldships, hissed a representative from the Varen Dominion, her eyes glowing like amber fire. "Impossible. No species could construct such." "They could," interrupted the archivist of Kellner, a pale being whose eyes shimmered with ancient data streams. "They could, and they did." Counselors turned toward the archivist, their voices a mixture of anger and confusion. "What proof do you have?" "Enough," the archivist said quietly. "The time for denial is over." With a gesture, the archivist summoned a projection above the council floor, the seal of the Elder Concord, flickering and ancient, its once golden runes now dim with age. The crowd gasped. "Those archives are forbidden," snapped a delegate. "Even viewing them violates a law written by the very beings who feared the truth." The archivist finished. "Do you truly believe they banned this knowledge for morality's sake?" A low hum filled the chamber as the projection unfolded, revealing rows of crystalline tablets, records, so old that most modern civilizations had not yet discovered fire when they were first written, and upon them, in languages now lost to time, burned a single phrase: "Let Earth sleep. Let the fires of man remain cold." The chamber dimmed as the holographic projection expanded, showing the last known maps of human expansion space, thousands of years old. Dotted lines marked where human colonies once reached, dozens of sectors, hundreds of worlds. Then the red lines of conflict appeared: invasions, blockades, betrayals. The Orion Wars. Half the galaxy had turned on humanity, fearing them, envying them, desperate to crush their relentless rise. And humanity had fought back. The projections shifted to battle footage from the ancient archives. Human ships moving with surgical precision, outnumbered but never outmaneuvered. Entire fleets falling silent under the weight of human strategy and technology. But then, as suddenly as the wars had begun, humanity stopped. No surrender, no peace treaty, just silence. Their fleets withdrew. Their colonies went dark. Their transmissions ceased, and the galaxy, arrogant and relieved, assumed they had destroyed themselves. Now, the archivist's voice echoed through the chamber, soft but cutting through the tension like a blade. Humanity did not die. They chose to disappear. A murmur rippled through the audience. "Chosen? For what purpose?" asked the Zarin Chancellor, his crystalline carapace flickering with agitation. The archivist turned another page in the projection, revealing blueprints so advanced they hurt to look at equations that folded dimensions, engines that bent spacetime, structures larger than planets. For survival, she said, they saw what was coming, a war that would never end, a cycle of destruction. They knew no empire could survive endless enemies. So, they did the one thing no species has ever done. No, the archivist said, eyes narrowing. They evolved. The image shifted again, showing a series of hidden star systems, cloaked within gravitational distortions. Within those systems, Titanic constructs orbited dim suns, artificial worlds, each one self-sustaining, shielded, and alive. Sanctuaries, she explained, not planets, not colonies, ecosystems of survival. They dismantled their own empire, erased every trace of their existence, and hid in the folds of space, places even light could not find. The room was still, but how could they live, isolated for millennia? Asked the Druin delegate. They didn't live, said the archivist. They slept. A new hologram flickered to life, rows upon rows of cryogenic chambers, stretching beyond the horizon. Billions of capsules lined in perfect symmetry. Within each, a human motionless, preserved. The sight was enough to silence even the most skeptical. The archivist continued, her voice now almost reverent. The constructs that the Vernari fleet discovered were not mere weapons. They were arcs, each one housing billions of human beings and cryostasis soldiers, scientists, engineers, civilians, waiting for a signal. What signal? Someone whispered. The archivist turned slowly, her expression grave. The awakening. At that, several delegates exchanged alarmed glances. You mean they were designed to wake? Yes, the archivist said. Each construct contains a series of triggers, automated defense protocols, environmental calibrations, and something far more intelligent. The archives referred to them as overseers. The chamber lights dimmed further, the projection showing vague humanoid silhouettes, towering figures of light and metal, standing guard over the cryogenic vaults. These overseers were not machines. The archivist continued. They were synthetic guardians, hybrids of man and code, bound by one command: protect the sleepers. The room felt colder now. For millennia, they waited, maintaining their sanctuaries, repairing, building, watching. Watching for what? The archivist raised her gaze. For the galaxy to forget. A long silence followed, heavy, suffocating. In the far corner of the chamber, Admiral Zorath, still pale from his encounter at Sigma-13, spoke for the first time. They didn't build those warships for conquest, he said quietly. They built them because they knew this day would come, the day someone would find them, the day curiosity would dig too deep. He turned toward the others. They prepared for us. The realization spread like a toxin. The Druin, the Ascendancy, the countless empires that had mocked the myth of humanity, they had all just awoken something that was never meant to rise again. And it was already too late, because across the galaxy, new signals were emerging, faint rhythmic pulses from systems long thought dead, each one identical, each one ancient, protocol sovereign, reactivation sequence initiated. The Council's emergency lights turned crimson. Communications flooded in from border sectors, colonies going dark, stars flickering as gravitational distortions rippled across space. The humans were waking. And with them, their machines, the Eidolon constructs, living fortresses powered by miniature stars, self-replicating, self-aware, and unstoppable. The galaxy, for all its empires and arrogance, had thought humanity was gone. Now, they finally understood the storm had passed. Humanity had 3 days. They had simply been waiting for the universe to forget its blue world, waiting to remind it, analyzing, sending drones into the atmosphere. Nothing came back. No readings, no signals, just the sound of their own nervous breathing through static. Then, on the 4th day, the lights went out. It began without sound. One moment, the fleet was alive, ships aligned in perfect formation, scanners humming, comes buzzing. The next, every system blinked to black, engines cut out mid-gravity plating shut off. Thousands of tons of metal drifted like dead leaves in orbit around the sleeping Earth. Command, command, respond. Voices shouted across dead channels. But there was no response. Not from the flagship Evita, not from the research vessels, not from anyone. The Dominion ships didn't explode. They didn't even fall. They just stopped existing as ships' holoshells caught in an invisible web. Captain Velthorin stared at the darkened console in disbelief. The emergency lights flickered around him, bathing the bridge in blood-red hues. Systems offline, muttered his engineer. All power conduits are frozen, even backups. It's like something's inside the grid. Inside. Thoron snapped. Explain. But the engineer didn't answer. His eyes were locked on his console, trembling. Sir, the ship's AI core just changed. Changed. How? It's not ours anymore. A sound echoed through the hull, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through bone and steel alike. Something had woken up. Outside the viewport, space itself seemed to shimmer. A ring of faint blue light bloomed around the planet, expanding like ripples on water. Then came the shapes, distant, faint, like ghosts rising from the depths. Satellites. Thousands of them. They formed a perfect lattice around Earth, linking together with beams of light, each one powered by energy signatures so intense they distorted the Dominion's scanners. Impossible, whispered Thorin. Those platforms predate our own technology by millennia. And yet, they were active. A signal pulsed from the planet, a tone, rhythmic and deliberate. Each pulse resonated with the satellites, syncing them into a perfect harmonic frequency. The hum grew louder. Sir, said the comms officer, voice shaking. We're receiving transmissions. Thousands. Across every channel. Play it. At first, it was static. Then voices, whispers layered atop one another. Male, female. Thousands speaking in unison. But they weren't words from any alien tongue. They were human. Double quotes. Protocols restored. Defense grid online. Awakening sequence confirmed. Thorin's blood ran cold. He turned to his bridge crew, his voice barely above a whisper. Get us out of here. But the ship didn't move. Thrusters refused to ignite. The navigation system had been hijacked, repurposed. The controls responded, but not to them. And then came the signal. Every screen on the bridge flared to life. A single phrase appeared, written in a dead human language, instantly translated by the Dominion's processors. We see you. The Dominion fleet panicked. Emergency beacons blazed. Engines roared to life and chaos. Ships collided, scrambling to retreat. And one by one, they fell. Not destroyed. Not shot down, taken. They froze mid-maneuver, suspended in orbit as invisible forces seized them. Whole cruisers folded in half, their hulls imploding with surgical precision. No explosion, no debris, just silence. From the planet below, light began to bloom across the continents, thin lines tracing ancient scars across the land, connecting like circuits on a colossal board. Cities were lighting up again, cities that weren't supposed to exist. Then came Thorin's final transmission. It wasn't to his fleet. It wasn't to command. It was a desperate, half-broken message. Intercepted later by the Dominion High Council and sealed in archives under Omega classification. They are not survivors. They are waiting predators. Their technology, it's alive. Their ships, they think. Their minds connected. We've awakened the storm. The rest dissolved into static. That was the last anyone heard from the Avitus or the Tavara expedition. For 3 weeks, Dominion long-range sensors recorded strange patterns from SAL, faint electromagnetic waves, structured in perfect rhythm, not random noise. Communication. The signals pulsed through space like a heartbeat, reaching further and further until they vanished into the dark. Each one carried compressed packets of code, unreadable, encrypted beyond comprehension. Then, silence, not the natural silence of dead systems or broken relays. A deliberate, intelligent silence. The kind that waits. The kind that listens. Dominion scientists debated endlessly what had happened. Some claimed humanity's technology had evolved into sustaining AI systems, machine guardians defending their homeworld. Others whispered of a biological awakening, ancient humans rising from cryosleep beneath the planet's crust. But none of them could explain the pattern. The frequency was unlike any natural emission. It was structured, recursive learning. It wasn't just sending signals. It was mapping the galaxy. The Dominion sent probes to investigate. None returned. They sent stealth drones with quantum encryption. Gone. They sent warships. Gone. And then, the transmissions stopped. For one full cycle, Sol went completely dark. No signals. No readings. Not even starlight. The entire system vanished from the Dominion's long-range sensors as if it had never existed. The galaxy exhaled in uneasy relief. The storm, it seemed, had ended. Until they came, it started small. In the outermost systems of the Orion Arm, merchant ships reported strange encounters, dark shapes moving faster than light could register. Entire convoys vanished without distress calls. Patrol stations went silent. When investigators arrived, they found nothing but drifting dust, and in the dust, small metallic fragments etched with a single symbol, a blue sphere surrounded by orbiting rings, Earth's emblem. A week later, the first human transmission in 10,000 years echoed across the stars. It was not a declaration of war, not a demand, not a boast. Just a voice. Calm, steady, commanding. To the civilizations of the galaxy, this is the Terran continuum. We remember the elders. We remember the Concord. We remember why we slept. Do not disturb us again. The broadcast repeated across every known channel, transmitted through frequencies no one could block, reaching every world in the Dominion, every system of the Council, every empire that had once mocked the name of humanity. And then nothing. The transmission ended, and with it came the quiet realization that chilled even the proudest rulers. Humanity had not come to conquer. They had come to remind the galaxy of a truth older than the stars themselves. That peace was not mercy. It was restraint. That silence was not surrender. It was waiting. And that behind the myth of extinction, humanity had been watching all along. Across the Dominion, panic spread like wildfire. Fleets were mobilized. Fortresses armed their planetary cannons. Intelligence networks scrambled to decode the human transmission. But it wasn't just a message. It was a map. Hidden within the carrier wave were coordinates, dozens of them scattered across the spiral arms. Each one marked the location of something colossal. Artificial worlds, orbital rings, deep space vaults, each one labeled simply Ark. The Dominion quickly realized the awful truth. Sol was not the only human world. There were hundreds. For every Ark awakened, 1,000 silent machines came online. For every probe sent to observe, a warning signal was returned. And for every fleet sent to investigate, there was never a return. By the time the council met again, a new term had entered the galactic lexicon. 2 words whispered in every corridor. The Second Awakening. The elders had warned them. The Concord had forbidden it. But arrogance, as it always does, had drowned out wisdom. Now, the galaxy knew. Humanity was not gone. They had slept beneath the surface of their world, dreaming in metal and machine, building a civilization that needed no empire, only purpose. And that purpose had awakened. No one dared to send ships toward Sol again. Not the Dominion, not the Ascendancy, not even the Theocracy with its zealot fleets. Because deep down, they understood. Humanity had shown mercy once. They would not need to show it again. And somewhere, in the quiet of deep space, beyond the veil of stars, the humans watched their planet-sized arcs drifting between suns. Their minds linked across time and thought. Their message eternal. We remember the great silence. We remember why we slept. Absence of light. Do not disturb us the void between stars, but the quiet understanding that settled upon the galaxy. After humanity's awakening. For centuries, the stars had echoed with the noise of empires, fleets warring, trade routes pulsing with light, colonies being built and broken in endless cycles of ambition. But when the humans stirred, when the world machines turned their gaze upon the void and whispered, "Do not disturb us again," something inside every civilization changed. It wasn't peace born of treaties or alliances. It was peace born of fear. And over the following centuries, that fear became wisdom. That wisdom became tradition. And that tradition became legend. The first centuries, the age of remembering. In the first century, after the awakening, the Galactic Council reformed itself under a single unbreakable decree. No expedition shall enter Sol. No scan shall pierce the Terran veil. No archive shall distort the truth of what occurred. They called it the Edict of Remembrance. Every new member species, upon joining the council, was required to read it aloud before the Chamber of Stars. The words were spoken not as command, but as oath, a vow, carved into the heart of every culture that sought to touch the sky. In the grand chamber, a single chair stood empty, crafted from black obsidian and pale silver, lined with carvings that told humanity's story. The rise, the fall, the slumber, the awakening. No one sat upon it. No one dared to even brush it with a hand. It was the human seat, a place reserved not for mortals, but for myth. During ceremonies, the elders would face that empty seat and bow their heads. When disputes arose, the chair's silent presence seemed to judge them. Even the proud Vernari, once conquerors of the core, spoke softly in its shadow. Children grew up learning the tale before they learned their own histories. They called it the lesson of the sleepers. The myths of the outer rim far beyond the council's reach. In the scattered frontier worlds, the legend twisted and took new shapes. Some said the humans were no longer flesh at all, that their consciousness had merged with their machines, becoming something eternal and cold, drifting in the void between galaxies. Others claimed they had ascended, turned into pure energy, watching over the stars like gods of light. But the most whispered version, the one that passed from mouth to mouth among miners, traders, and smugglers, was simpler. The humans are still out there. They never stopped watching. Freighter captains told stories of ships vanishing after approaching forbidden sectors. Explorers spoke of seeing ghostly silhouettes in the darkness. Massive constructs that shimmered like planets but moved like predators. No evidence ever came back. But the stories persisted. Some even claimed to have heard them. The so-called heartbeats of Sol became one of the galaxy's most famous unsolved mysteries. Faint, rhythmic pulses detected on deep space sensors every few decades. The frequency was identical each time, matching the pattern of a human heartbeat. Scientists tried to explain it. Some said it was stellar interference. Others blamed the pulse of dark matter fluctuations. But the old ones, the ones who still remembered the council's warnings, would only shake their heads. "That's not interference," they'd whisper. "That's a reminder." The scholars of the silence in time, a new generation of historians emerged, beings who studied not the wars or the empires, but the absence between them. They called themselves the archivists of the void. Their central belief was simple: that humanity's disappearance wasn't an act of aggression, but an act of mercy. They argued that the humans had chosen sleep to spare the galaxy from destruction. To them, the awakening had not been a warning, it had been a plea. Across dozens of worlds, these archivists built temples instead of labs, great halls filled with relics and memory. In the center of each stood a sphere of glass, glowing faintly with captured starlight. When pilgrims entered, they were asked to place their hand upon the glass and recite 3 words. "We remember them." It became a ritual of humility, a promise to never repeat the arrogance that had once nearly destroyed the stars themselves. And so, the legend of humanity became less a tale of fear, and more, a symbol of restraint, the council's dilemma. But not all were content to live under shadow. By the 6th century of peace, whispers of rebellion stirred within the council. Younger civilizations, new empires born without scars, began to question the edict. They asked, why should we fear ghosts? They demanded to explore Sol, to reclaim what they saw as forgotten opportunity. Their fleets grew bold, their scientists curious, and the old ones, the Vernari, the Kellner, the surviving fragments of the Druin, tried to warn them. We saw what happens when you disturb them, said the Kellner elder H. We watched our sons dim when their eyes opened. Leave them in their peace. But the young do not heed the lessons of the old. A coalition of explorers led by the Erothian Union launched the Eclipse expedition. Their goal was simple: reach Sol, prove the humans were gone, and lift the veil of fear that bound the galaxy. They never returned. No explosion, no wreckage, not even a trace of mass displacement. The entire expedition simply vanished. The council received a single data burst 12 hours later. It contained one sentence, transmitted on a frequency no known ship could use. You were told. That was enough. The Edict of Remembrance was renewed and reinforced with blood, the faith of the sleepers. By the 10th century, the story of the humans had transcended history. It had become faith. Across 1,000 worlds, temples rose dedicated to the sleepers. Pilgrims came bearing offerings, fragments of lost technology, recordings of old human speech, even DNA samples preserved from museum archives. They didn't come seeking gods, they came seeking forgiveness. One of the most sacred places was Sanctanine, a moon carved into a monument of silence. At its heart stood a sculpture, a towering figure of a human, carved from obsidian. One hand reaching toward the stars, the other resting upon the ground. The inscription beneath read, they reached for the stars, and when they grasped them, they let go. Every century, the council sent a delegation there. They would light a single flame before the statue, bow, and renew their vow. We shall not awaken them. We shall not forget. The children of the new dawn. But time erodes all things, even fear. 10 centuries after the awakening, a new age dawned. The galaxy was at peace, rich and thriving. Technology flourished. Planets were terraformed, diseases cured, species united in cooperation. The threat of war had faded into myth. And so, curiosity returned. Young explorers, children of peace, no longer trembled when they heard humanity's name. To them, the sleepers were not monsters, but marvels. They saw them not as a warning, but as a mystery begging to be solved. They studied the ancient transmissions, decoded fragments of Terran language, even reconstructed small artifacts recovered from lost archives. They wanted to understand what kind of beings could command such fear, such respect, for 10,000 years. But the elders knew what curiosity could cost. Some doors, they warned, are closed not by locks, but by mercy. Few listened. Deep in the frontier, an independent research vessel, the Lyris Dawn, decided to test the silence. They built a quantum relay aimed directly at the coordinates of Sol and sent a simple signal: we come in peace. We seek knowledge. For 33 seconds, there was no response. Then every sensor in the sector screamed with interference. A single signal returned. Faint, deliberate, unmistakably human. Peace requires obedience. The Lyris Dawn was never heard from again. The Watchers in the dark. Over time, the galaxy learned to coexist with the mystery. Out in the empty sectors, automated probes would sometimes detect immense gravitational distortions, massive objects moving between stars with impossible precision, entire fleets of dark, silent vessels that bent light around them. Invisible except for the faint glow of blue orbitals trailing in their wake, they never attacked. They never spoke. They only watched. Whenever the galaxy edged too close to war, one of those ships would appear hovering just beyond sensor range, silent, still unblinking, and without fail. The conflict would stop. No empire ever dared test whether those watchers would intervene. It was enough simply to know they existed. Some called them the Wardens. Others called them the Eyes of Sol. But everyone knew what they truly were. The humans were awake, and they were watching. The last lesson millennia passed. Empires rose and fell, as they always had, but the silence of Sol endured. Eventually, the galaxy entered an age historians later called the Era of Reflection. War had become unthinkable. Greed, a sickness of the past. For the first time in known history, the civilizations of the Milky Way turned inward to art, to philosophy, to thought. And at the center of it all, the legend of humanity remained a single thread of memory binding the stars together. On the 1000th anniversary of the awakening, the council gathered in full assembly. Billions tuned in across the galaxy to witness the ceremony. The renewal of the Edict of Remembrance. The High Speaker stepped to the center of the chamber. Behind him, the human seat gleamed in the starlight. Untouched for 10,000 years, he raised his voice, trembling but proud. We have thrived in peace because they taught us fear. We have survived because they demanded silence. Let us remember that our strength is born not from conquest, but from caution. He turned toward the empty chair, and to our silent guardians, the sleepers of Sol, we offer gratitude.